Hey guys, welcome to my channel. If you are a newcomer, make sure to subscribe, it helps me a lot. A little background, I've been looking for the best string for the Yonex Ezone 98. This is a comparison review of both very popular strings, Solinco Confidential 130 gauge versus Babolat RPM Blast 130 gauge. In theory, Babolat is a bit more popular on tour. Confidential, well, it is a hidden gem. We will discuss, we will compare power, spin potential, feel/comfort, launch angle, and overall performance. I think, me myself, I was quite interested in this comparison. I was wondering which string I will prefer. I liked RPM Blast in Dunlop FX 500 Tour. It was my wow moment. In pure aero, 125 gauge I liked, 130 not so much. So yeah, mixed feelings, and it really depends on the racket, your play style, but probably especially racket. When it comes to confidential and my personal experience, I really liked it in prestige rackets, Prestige Tour, Prestige Pro, Prestige MP. So let's start with power. Quite similar. I wouldn't choose one or the other looking for more control or more power. They are almost on the same shelf when it comes to power potential. If I had to give a small edge to one string, I would pick Solinco Confidential. By the way, to me, like Confidential sits pretty much in between RPM Blast and Laxilon Alu Power. It has some traits from both strings. It's not a copycat of Alu Power, it's not a copycat of RPM Blast, but both group of players might find something that they like in Confidential. RPM Blast, in a way, is a bit more traditional. Alu Power is more launchy. The response is a bit hotter. Confidential, yeah, mixes those two DNAs, gives slightly more control than the Alu Power, yeah, and slightly more power than the RPM Blast, but I wouldn't call it a deciding factor while thinking about the switch. Now to the spin potential. We all know, if you're following me, that I've been struggling to generate more spin with the E-zones. E-zones are kinda like a pure drive, where it gives me the performance, power, but it is more in a linear way. It's harder to shape the ball above the net, play with angles, play with heights. Sometimes I'm just losing the ball too fast and I hit out with the E-zone. And I was wondering if there is a string that could allow me to play slightly with a different play style than maybe the E-zone is pushing me to do. So when we want to compare RPM Blast to Confidential, I want to give a slight edge to the Confidential. Similarly to Alu Power, it just catches the ball in a way where you are able to shape the ball a bit more, not by much. It didn't really surprise me that much with that big of a difference, and so E-zone is still there pushing its personality. It doesn't mean both strings are very poor in spin potential. They are excellent in that department. It's just the combination of the string with the Ezone 98, hard to say. Now to the feel/comfort. Here is a big difference in my opinion. RPM Blast is slightly more gammy, so it's a bit more muted, so you might think of it as a more comfortable string, but when it comes to vibrations coming to your hand, quite similar. Both strings are more low power, contra-oriented than responsive, launchy. I didn't really experience any pain or harshness with both strings. RPM Blast was more muted and Confidential was slightly more focused. So we are now shifting towards feel rather than comfort. The feel with the confidential, in my opinion, it is slightly better, giving me more feedback, more connection. I can aim to smaller targets. At least it gives me the feeling of this potential. Definitely the feel of the confidential, in my opinion, is slightly better, cleaner, a little bit towards Alu Power. Now the launch angle. Very similar, RPM Blast 130 and Confidential 130. They produce a very linear, predictable launch. Of course, a bit lower above the net when compared, for example, to Turbite 125. With the Turbite, it's more up and down game, and yeah, Confidential, straight line, which I like. But in the Ezone itself is producing this launch angle, so I want to give some chaos to the performance, so I can shape the ball a bit more. Yeah, it's a bit more tricky. So the overall performance, I'm picking Solinco Confidential. It is just a bit easier to play with. The feel is a bit cleaner. Yeah, with RPM Blast I was struggling a little bit. It was just harder to bend the string. Still, the overall sensation of power potential was actually quite similar. So it's just the sensation with the Confidential that I had more confidence with it. So maybe in a way I would call it a more communicative string. What you give is what you will get. RPM Blast maybe limits my swing style a little bit more. I have to push a bit more to get similar ball. The power of both strings are still quite on a lower side, but Confidential was just a more enjoyable ride. So, Solinco Confidential wins this battle, and I would put it actually in my top 3 when it comes to strings for the Yonex Ezone 98. I am thinking now about Laxodon Alu Power Soft, Solinco Confidential and Yonex Polytour Strike. Still I am searching. I will try Solinco Mach 10 because I like Confidential and this is a neighbor to this string, and I'll also try Grapple Snake M8, but with a slightly thinner gauge 125. Should be interesting. So make sure to subscribe and see you soon. Bye bye.